a beautiful representation of what we mean by we are all one, but while still honoring each other's uniqueness and differences.
Nothing is free. Everything requires work. If you don't want to pay for it, understand someone has still worked to be able to provide it for you.
You take a moment and evaluate, is the information that you're sharing, is it truthful? Is it kind? And is it necessary?
It's hard to not feel like you're gaslighting yourself. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, yeah.
It is. This episode is a compilation of some of the most insightful and inspiring moments from Love Always Self. Please enjoy and happy holidays.
I actually shared a video with you, and the video, it was done on YouTube. Bruce Lipton was talking about some of the conflict that's been going on in the Middle East and gave a really beautiful presentation as far as seeing and holding in regard or holding diversity in regard and really encouraging us to take a moment and shift our perspective on the importance of valuing each other's individuality and the diversity among all of us. So that's really what we wanted to talk to you about today. And we, of course, will link that full video below. It's about 30 minutes. And so you can check out the length of it and everything that he presented in that information. But what really was fascinating to me was the imagery that was used in this discussion of how, while we all perceive each other as unique and different with differing backgrounds and skin colors and religions and body types and diets, the list is endless as far as what is different in each of us. And really seeing that while we feel so separate and so different, that all of these differences, when they come together, it's a very unifying in his imagery. And if you're on YouTube, we'll pop up an image. But if you are on audio, I want to describe that to you. So basically, he was showing a glass prism and shining a white light through the prism. We've seen this before. If you've been into Pink Floyd, you've seen this on the Dark Side of the Moon album.
Yep.
But
good reference.
Yes.
Nicely done.
So the white light that is shining into the prism, on the other side of it, I think it's refractory light. I could be wrong on that. But the light that's shown through the prism to the other side, you see all the different colors. Was it Roy G. Biv?
The rainbow.
Yes.
It's the taste the rainbow.
Yes, the Skittles. I really thought this was a beautiful representation of what we mean by we are all one while still honoring each other's uniqueness and differences.
I agree. I like that he also referenced the light that goes in is the solid white light, and how this was the part that I loved the most, and how a lot of people, especially in this community, we talk, and I even talk about it. We talk about the white light, right? And how we all want to go and see and feel this beautiful white light. Even those that have an experience in NDEs, they have the feeling of the white light, right? And how when that white light, singularly looking in the idea of the spectrum or the prism, shining through, coming out into these different colors, appearing to be different, simulating polarity or separation of any sort, even though it's not really separate. But all you have to do is take all of those colors and push it right back through in the opposite direction, and it's still that white light.
Yes, I love that. And I think of this prism as this veil of separation that we talk about frequently. And so you see this unifying white light shining through, and this veil of separation creating all of these different, what's the word that I was looking for? Not particles.
Rays? Spectrums? Perspectives?
No, like different parts of you and me.
different molecules?
No. Yeah.
Nebulas. No, just kidding.
But
Is that even a thing? That's a star, isn't it? Okay.
a
Maybe.
nebulous.
Sure. Okay.
It's a character on the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I know. That's where I got it from because I'm a nerd.
Nebula. Yeah. Anyways, I won't get stuck on the word, but we talk about like in this physical form, we hear all these people telling us like, oh, that religion is bad. Oh, that, way of life is negative, or, oh, that thing that they do pulls them farther away from God. When in reality, it's the lack of compassion, the lack of love, the lack of respect for another person's choices and way of life that adds to that
Yeah.
separation. And if we, and that's part of the programming that
Yes.
that we
Yes.
tend to unknowingly interact and absorb through our childhood, that teaches us that if it's not, sorry, this is from my own life, if it's not Christianity, it's of the devil, right? Or any other religion, it's a bad thing. It's getting away from God.
Right.
And you can go down the different paths with, different subjects, but it's like, wait a minute, are these really bad things, or are we placing them in a bad category and calling them bad because that's our, belief system, not even a belief system that we've, developed ourselves, but that's been taught to us and passed down. I've never experienced this before, but it was a very awkward situation because 9-hour flight, right? Most people have to go to the bathroom at least once if they have a healthy bladder and kidney during a 9-hour time frame.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
The gentleman, don't know how he did it, did not. But my mom and I, we did.
Yeah. Which means you had to go around him.
Yeah. And, we had to ask for him to move out of the way. And so the first time that we went to the bathroom, I tapped his shoulder and he seemed very disgruntled, and he like shifted, but didn't get up out of the seat, just moved his knees over and kind of like huffed while he did it. He just, everything about his energy, his expressions, like his body language.
He's just not happy with it.
Yeah. He was not pleased with our request. And so my mom and I, we ended up having to climb over his lap, and it was like almost ass to face kind of thing. And so the second time I leaned over and I was like, sir, I am so sorry for this inconvenience. My mom and I, we really have to go to the bathroom again. And he did the same gesture where he was disgruntled, like huffed and moved his knees to the side, but didn't get up, didn't unbuckle his seatbelt, like just like shut his book, slammed it shut and just, And the difference was the person in front of him was leaning back. So now this is about 3 inches of space. And I just like surveyed this for like, I don't know, it felt like a good 15 seconds. It was probably less, but I was just kind of like looking back and forth like,
how am I going to get through there? Yeah.
And finally I leaned over and I was like, sir, I'm so sorry, but I don't think I can fit through there. And so he like grabbed the lady's seat from behind, yanked himself up, which caused her to kind of like startle and turn back around to see what the heck was going on. Excuse me.
No, I mean, I feel you. Yeah.
And he just like got up, was still very huffy about it. And so when we got back, again, I leaned over to my mom and I was like, oh man, that was super awkward. That was really uncomfortable. And later on, I was just thinking like, why?
Yeah.
Why would he respond like that? Because in reality, I have no idea what's going on with this person.
That right there.
I have no understanding of his experiences and what he is feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And I don't know if he's in pain or if he's dealing with an emotional, thing that's going on in his head or in his heart. Like, I have no idea. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to apply these potential things to him, but I'm just acknowledging that I really don't know what's going on with him.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that although this would be a great way to give somebody the benefit of the doubt that maybe the reasoning was sufficient for his behavior, it also leans back into you have no idea.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So while I'm still valid in my feeling that it was very
Right.
uncomfortable, you know, it was an awkward situation. It made it difficult for me to ask for him to move out of the way, to even want to ask him to, you know, allow us around to go to the restroom and relieve ourselves. And I think that this was a aha moment for me, that to be able to hold compassion, and this is not in every situation, you know, sometimes that compassion can be held without requiring patience from you. But sometimes to be able to have compassion, we also must have patience as well.
What's one thing that you believe should be free for everyone but isn't? And wow, what a question, first of all. Definitely a conversation sparker. So, but it wasn't just that, because the first thought that came to my head, I'll get to in a minute, but it was the comments. 'Cause
Okay.
clearly I was going to be interested in see what people were saying in response to that question. And so one of the comments I came across, because there was a lot of really beautiful comments, please go and take a look at it. But one of the comments said, "Nothing is free. Everything requires work. If you don't want to pay for it, understand someone has still worked to be able to provide it for you." And that got me thinking. And this is what we're going to riff off of today, because that was the part that was like, oh, okay. Because the following comment to that comment was, "Only because that is the narrative so far. Humans on Earth are only living things that must quote unquote pay to exist."
It definitely, okay, so that first comment kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not going to lie. Kind of like, you know, like, but why? Like,
Yeah.
why does that have to be that way? Now, don't get me wrong. I think that when we work, we deserve to, even if it's not paid, right? We need to be supported in a way where we can live without worry,
Yeah.
right? And we can flourish. I I think there's two parts to this. A, yes, I agree with that second comment.
Yeah.
That this is our programming, this is what we know, so we don't believe that there can be any other way. And so we just, you know, wash our hands and say, well, that's just the way it is. My other thought on that is, well, is that the problem, just the programming? Or is it the fact that our allocation of country funds, so we all pay taxes, or at least the majority of us do. If you don't, you run a risk of going to jail. So in a way, we're kind of blackmailed into supporting, you know, the government and their goals, whether or not we agree with how they're allocating the money. So if we don't agree, we really don't have a say in where our money goes. I would love an itemized bill for my taxes so I know where my money's going. I would also like to be able to allocate that money for the beliefs, you know, for the things that I believe need it most. I do believe that there has been misallocation of funds,
Yeah.
and certain areas are over supported to a point where there's so many other things that are in need of support for us to live and thrive and grow as a community.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is this in my, so the first off, the question, right?
Oh yeah, I didn't even answer that, but go right ahead.
No, it's okay. You're so funny. So the question when I read it, the first time I read it, the first thing to my mind before even looking at the comments was like, well, duh, water and energy, clean water and energy.
And you and I agree on that thought.
Yeah. And that was the part. So when I had that response in my head and then I read the comment, my perception, although it could go in different ways, right? You could either read it as that person being sarcastic and stating it in a sarcastic way. I leaned a bit more towards the negative aspect of perceiving it as well. And so I read it as kind of like old programming thought process, right? That what always was still has to be, which is the exact, in my mind, the exact change that I think all of us across the globe needs to make. And so there's this aspect in me that's like, you know what? I think it would be great that if we had the ability, if all of us had the ability, and this is just maybe a pipe dream, whatever, but if all of us had the ability to contribute in some way in providing clean water globally and clean, free energy globally, would we all pitch in? Would humanity step up and pitch in without being compensated? Because if you think about it, your compensation is that you get to drink clean water and you get to have free energy, clean, free energy that's not causing any harm or doing any damage. And we are all absorbing this on a daily basis. And it's part of being a human being living in a body that requires water. It's a fundamental thing that we have monetized somehow.
And that's part of the disgusting level of greed that is so pervasive in our society, or at least the people that control so much of our society, is that if they can monetize something, they will.
Yeah.
And so the thing is we require water to live. Our bodies, our physical bodies require water to live. And I don't know, like part of me, the first word that came to mind was brilliant, but brilliantly greedy person realized that they can take the water from a spring, stick it in a bottle, a plastic bottle that will eventually
Pollute
the earth and sell it to the rest of us at a crazy price that is unnecessary.
which is wild.
The quote is from Socrates, and the quote is it true, is it kind, or is it necessary? And
Right.
so, again, we are talking in terms of what we share as far as information, the kind of words that we choose to share with other people, the way we speak to other people, really taking a moment. And this was something that Socrates really was trying to share with a lot of people and encourage people to do, is to take a moment and evaluate, is the information that you're sharing, is it truthful, is it kind, and is it necessary? And if it meets those things, then by all means, share away. But if it doesn't, then maybe rethink, and maybe you shouldn't say anything at all.
Yeah. I want to give me just a second. Let me look this up really fast. There was a article that Carrie shared with me when we were talking about this topic. And we'll link the article below. And just to make sure that we are giving credit where credit's due, it is brightvibes.com. And at the bottom, they made this comment and they say, most people leave it at that and assume that the story is just about the information we spread. What is the real truth behind it, however, is about the information we seek and create. Imagine how different the world would be if we only chose to seek and create information that was true or good or useful. And that little paragraph right there is what resonated the most with me. Even though the Socrates quote is very, wow, that's a thought process that we should all be having when quote unquote gossiping.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it makes me think of the golden rule, right? Like do unto others as you would want them to do unto you.
Right.
And if you are speaking unkind to somebody, would you appreciate that?
Right.
Receiving that kind of unkind treatment? And so really it's taking that zooming out thing and putting yourself in that other person's shoes. Like, how would that feel to receive that?
When you are speaking ill towards somebody else, it does have an impact on that person's life.
You are sending negativity out into the world by perpetuating
Right.
that negative sharing.
Right.
Or sharing of negative information.
And for those of you that might have heard that and have decided, interesting, and feel that that gives you empowerment to do so, which I hope that our audience doesn't have that kind of thought process, but Just so you know, vibration is like ocean waves, right? And they're ripples. And so what you send out comes right back.
And there's actually a lot of cultures that believe that whatever you put out into the world, you'll get back threefold. So when you put out negativity, when you put out evil, when you put out aggression, at some point, maybe not in this life, but at some point, you will get it back
Yeah.
and have to work through that.
You ever listen to somebody talking and while they're talking and they're sharing, or even as like a news story that you're reading or watching on a video or whatever, and as they're like telling you all these negative things that are happening, it starts to like physically impact you, right? Like you start getting kind of like nauseated or anxious or really angry,
Get a headache.
get headaches. And so those are just words, but those just words have all that vibratory effect on how you are going to react to it, especially if you have any inkling of an emotional connection to it whatsoever. And so I think about things like when I think about what it is that I'm saying and how is it that I'm presenting information. Now, don't get me wrong, right? We're human. There's some shit talking that I've done in my days, and I still do it occasionally, right? Like it happens.
In other words, we're not perfect either.
Right. So no judgment, right? But at the same time, now I have a better approach as far as trying to be mindful or starting to kind of backtrack. Like if I start saying things that are like negative about somebody else, I'm like, whoa, Shira, you like remember your training, remember the things that you know.
Right.
Right.
I just realized I missed the opportunity to arrive on your doorstep with a bow on my head.
Oh my God. You be my present. My birthday's tomorrow. At the time that we're recording this. So yeah. Oh.
And I'm looking forward to that too. Just hanging out, not working, not that this isn't work, but it's still work,
Right.
So I'm definitely looking forward to some playtime.
I know. Gotcha.
Yeah. I was thinking while you were saying about or talking about your challenges that you were experiencing this week, what a relief it was to be able to step away from all the day-to-day responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really nice when you get those moments. And well, shall we dive in?
If you're ready, I have no idea what we're diving into, but let's go.
That's true. I didn't tell her.
Yeah.
Okay. So this aha moment that I had, this epiphany, or see previous episode when I said thought dump. I want to be clear and I want to be specific with this one because it was so important. So every morning when I wake up, and I've described this before, if you're one of our followers and listeners, I've described this before that when I wake up in the morning, I tend to have a recall of the dream that I have just exited out of. And I try to write that down as soon as possible. But what I didn't say is that usually following that is where all of this, like, it feels like a floodgate of like all the thoughts that I have kind of like, I got to do this today. I got to do this today. Or this is on my mind. Oh, I never did that. All of a sudden, these like what I'm now calling and recognizing as patterns are coming into thought. So now I didn't put two and two together. I've been aware of that, right? And I've been working through some of the ones that feel less good and giving them positive affirmations to try to help change some of those patterns of thoughts first thing in the morning. And I know that helps and assists with setting about the rest of your day. But the thought dump that I had was what a lot of people call downloads, by the way. But this came in and it was like, it goes a little something like this. And I want to be sure that I kind of give more specifics around how it felt. Because when I'm connecting with Mount Glass, our guides, right, I can tell that there's a difference in not only the energy that I'm feeling from the message, but I also can tell that the tone is a little different than mine. So it's almost like it feels like me, but it's not me. Kind of like when you remember in your head how your mom sounds or your dad sounds when they talk, but you're not talking to them.
Okay.
Like, so you hear like the way that they speak, you get kind of a visual in your head of their body movements, maybe the way that their facial expressions are. So I know what that feels like from my guides. I've practiced with them understanding that, right? So I knew that this message was was a message from my Mount Glass team.
Okay.
Okay. So I knew that, and not to mention it was such a mind-blowing moment for me that I was kind of like, what? So here's what they said. So what they said is that when you're waking up in the morning, all these thoughts that kind of come flooding in really quickly is trying to tell you what's in your energetic field. And what they described when I said energetic field, what do you mean by that? Because it's like I understand it scientifically speaking, or like a lot of the different spirituality talks that we have, and some of the science that actually says that you have like an energetic field in
Like the auric field kind of thing.
right, the auric field, right. But the way that they explained it to me was that we're all made up of energy. Everything. Everything is vibrating at a rapid speed and in order to appear and feel solid to us, including ourselves, right? So everything has energy around it. Everything is producing a field of some sort. But us, as spiritual beings in a human form, we are amplifying a lot more. But within this energetic field, and they kind of like represented this like clear bubble around my figure, and in between the expansive part of the bubble, the most expanded part of the bubble, and my physical form, they were showing me all these little particles.
Okay.
And they were calling those thoughts. And that those thoughts are becoming the mirrors, both front and back, of everything that you experience. So it has a lot to do with how the rest of your day is going to play out, all the things that you're attracting, because they're not just mirrors or magnets. And when you are asleep and all of the little thought forms that you create from the physical calm down, and you're more connected to your spiritual in your sleeping state than you are your physical, especially during the beta waves, I believe is what they call it, or theta waves or something like that. They were explaining that now you are kind of participating in a different dimension,
Okay.
right? So when you wake up, you're reintegrating back into this 3D world, and your higher self, you or your Mount Glass team, whichever you want to call that, your spiritual team, they're trying to explain to you what's in your energetic field. So all those rushing in thoughts that you have in the morning is actually telling you exactly what's in your energetic field
Interesting.
and how that's impacting. And then I just saw the words, let go.
Your favorite. Second favorite.
Second favorite, right. I just saw it as clear as day. And it was like, it was pointing to all the things that I no longer want in my life that subconsciously and sometimes consciously I'm still focused on. But it's like literally telling me every morning, this is what's there. This is what's going on. And I was like, holy shit.
And ultimately, you have the choice.
I agree. And, you know, it's hard to like not feel like you're gaslighting yourself. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, yeah.
It is. It's like, focus on being happy. You know, it does. It feels very like, okay. Because there are still the things that I'm working through to be able to focus on being happy more often, or focusing on the joy. And that was the best part of the message that I got from Mount Glass for me. And that was, you are now shown exactly how to discover what it is that you're surrounding yourself with, right? Now, let go, whether it's going to be an easy one to let go or not. And some of those might take a little bit more work to let go of, but you got to do it. And that will help you refocus towards the joyful moments. And I literally just heard loud and clear in my head. And this is sometimes why, when you're fighting against something, that resisting and persisting, sometimes it persists so it can show you what's still there. And so what you're still focused on. And when I say focused on, it doesn't have to be that I'm thinking about this one thing all day, every day, consciously,
Right.
because sometimes it becomes subconscious. And that was the other aspect that they showed me was your physical brain does this scientific, look it up. I don't know where, but look it up. Google. Your physical brain does this thing that where you tell it something over and over again, it decides it's a pattern. And then it creates a pattern and then it reinforces said pattern.
Thank you guys so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you. We love you so much. And don't forget to spread that love outward. Love first
Love last.
and love always.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shira.
And until next time, remember to love first
Love last.
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.